Hi, and thank you for joining us today. Uh, Now, before we start, I just wanted to mention that Ken and I both had the privilege of co-authoring a book called Marketing Guides for Small. Sorry, that's what we are. Sorry, it's called Content Marketing for Local Search, creating content that Google loves and prospects devour. And we really enjoyed co-authoring that with some other marketing consultants. And in today's episode, we're actually diving into the world of content marketing and its crucial role in local search. And specifically, we're exploring the topic of why our content must focus on the problems we solve for our customers. It's a really interesting topic. I think we're going to get a lot out of this. My name's Ian, and I'll be your host. And joining me today is our resident marketing experts, Ken and Paul. And so let's jump into this vital topic, guys. Ken, I'll start with you. Why is it crucial for small businesses to center their content around problems they solve for their customers?
Yeah. So, this is such an important question. And I think way too many small businesses miss out on this. Really, the things that I want to talk about are differentiation, but also clarity. So, from a differentiation perspective, I think one of the best ways that you can create differentiation of how people may perceive your business in the marketplace is, asking your current best customers, why did they hire you? What makes you different? And they're going to tell you how you solved a problem that you may not have even been aware of. And so, and again, that's problem language that's coming from the customer. These are things that, we all get immersed and wrapped up in our own businesses. And sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. And so, taking a bigger picture and understanding how our customers are thinking is super, super important for so many different reasons, which we're going to cover today. So yeah, I think that that's very important. The other thing that I want to talk about is clarity. I think, from a marketing perspective, when you can speak to very clearly and efficiently and at the very top of your website that you get the problem that somebody has and that you have the solution and you have the credentials to guide them to help them solve that problem, I think that's huge. And so I love, what Donald Miller has to say about, problems. I mean, there are really three different perspectives of a problem that I think you need to think about. One is external problem, internal problem, and philosophical. I just think that this is so important. And most people only think about the one dimension, the one, maybe the one most obvious problem, which may generate why somebody visits your website, but it may not be why they buy from you. And so external problems typically are the things that people are going to express either through voice search or typing into the search, that they have a problem. I need help with a flooded basement, or, drywall repair, that even though that's not a question, it kind of implies a question. I need help with drywall repair. That's external. They're going to go to find somebody who looks like they do drywall repair. And then, the internal problem is where it kicks in. And this is where the emotion starts to come into play. And the more that a business can recognize what the internal problem is of who their ideal customers are when they land on their website and say, hey, we get it. We understand, your concerns here and your fears and your trepidations and things like that. And if you can answer that and you can demonstrate the authority, first of all, by having, information about the right set of questions on your website, I think is huge. And then philosophical is, I don't know how important that is, but I think it's just a good way to get grounded. And it's like, look, it's 2023. It shouldn't be that hard to find a reputable contractor. It could be that kind of a thing, but it's still important to keep in mind because it's very active in the way that people are thinking about problems when they're looking for a solution from a company. And, and let's face it, your business is all about providing a solution, whether you realize it or not. It could be a product, it could be a service. Could be kind of a hybrid of both, but it's absolutely critical. The other thing I want to say is, looking at and stepping back at thinking about frequently asked questions and should ask questions, I think are really important, because those are the things that are going to give you a strong indication of what challenges people are facing, and it's going to give you a way to potentially differentiate your business.
Yeah. And just to give a little more color to that, like you talked about external, internal, and philosophical. The philosophical, some people have a hard time grasping that. And just as an example, like in my own business, one of the philosophical beliefs that I share and the people I'm trying to attract share is that web designers should build websites that are SEO optimized, right? Like that's a philosophical belief. And the reverse of that is that, don't you hate it that web developers don't build websites that are SEO optimized or something like that, right? Where you're trying to meet on a philosophical level to say, I know your pain, and that's the emotional side, like that's part of the internal, but they're all interlinked, right? So it's a really interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. And Paul, how does understanding and addressing customer problems contribute to effective SEO?
Well, if you don't understand, it goes back to something Ken was talking about, the problems that you solve for the customer. I think a lot of small businesses, they don't get outside themselves, and they build a website and it's all about them. We've talked about this in the past, and they use industry jargon that the customer doesn't understand. So you have to understand the problem that the customer needs solved. So if you create content that matches what the customer is looking for based on the problem that they have and the problem that you solve, you're going to show up better in search engines, because search engines, and that's Google for the most part, they want to give the customer, the searcher, the best result possible. And how they do that is by looking at the content on your website. And this goes back to content marketing and why it's so important. But when you address the problems the customer have, and you talk to your customers, like Ken was saying, about what differentiated you, why they decided to hire you, that helps in your keyword research. And you have to hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes here, but you have to have content for the different stages of the customer journey, because they may start out, they don't know what they need really. Maybe they're looking at siding, and should they go with vinyl siding or should they go with a more expensive fiber cement siding solution? And you have to have content on your website that addresses that, and you have to use the content on your website to lead them down that path to a conversion. So it comes back to user intent, and if you have the content for the different stages of the customer journey, that's going to increase time spent on website. It's going to increase click-through rates, which Google likes. And ultimately, if you address the problems the customer has when they do decide to hire somebody, even if they do go to a competitor's website, if you better address their problem, they're probably going to wind up hiring you ultimately. And that all goes back to SEO.
Yeah. And Paul, just to clarify, are you suggesting this audacious idea that the website, that the content, that pretty much marketing in total is not about the business or the business owner? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So who is it about?
It's about the customer.
Yep.
And the problems they have and how you solve that problem.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And what's interesting about that too is that, the only reason why we as consumers or business to business buyers are even looking at a business is because we have a problem. We need it solved, right? And that's why we're searching for this. So I think that's, the stuff you're talking about is just so powerful because it's where the rubber meets the road. It changes the alignment of people's thinking when they're, business owners, when they're saying, hey, my website needs to be updated. A lot of times they're just thinking like, oh, it's kind of a refresh. It's looking a little outdated. Maybe I want to update some of the information on it. But that's the perfect time to really realign your whole website to focus on the problems you solve, making sure you focus on that target audience. And I love how you brought in the customer journey as well. That was excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to something I heard a long time ago that I forget where I heard it, but it's, do you know what the first question a customer has is? How can you help me solve my problem? You know what the 500th question a customer has? How can you help me solve my problem?
And somewhere in the middle of there is, do you care? Right?
Exactly.
Like that emotional aspect of, do you actually care? Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody knows how much, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
That's something else I heard a while back too.
Wow.
Those are good quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a quoting machine today.
Hey, never originate what you can steal. It's
That sounds like another quote.
Well, Ken, what role do customer problems play in shaping the content strategy? Now thinking from like a strategic standpoint for content, how does customer problems play into that for a small business?
Yeah, well, Paul kind of brought it up, which is talking about the customer journey. And, so you have to put yourself in the shoes of your customers. And again, we've talked about, there's a strong temptation that anybody who has a checkbook is going to be a customer, but really you don't have the money and the time and the energy to create everything for everybody. That is just a huge, huge mistake. Think about, your ideal customers and, put yourself in their shoes. People have different questions at different stages of the buyer's journey, or the marketing hourglass, as we like to say, in the duct tape marketing world. So when somebody is looking for know, like, or trust kind of information, they're typing in questions that may be more just, they want to learn some stuff. They're trying to gather information. They're not asking buying questions. They're not asking about purchase intent questions yet. They're trying to figure out, does this company get me? Do they have the solution set that may be what I'm looking for? How do I know? How are they different than the competitors? So you have to factor all of that in, and it rolls into, one of my biggest frustrations is a lot of small businesses, they have a single services page. And the services pages are usually the pages that are really, in terms of traditional web pages, those are the ones that usually help to answer the questions that people have when they're doing a search. And so if you have just a single services page, I guess, if you're an exterior contractor and you have an exterior contractor services page, if somebody's searching for exterior contractor, maybe they'll land on your page. That's a pretty high level keyword phrase. It's probably pretty competitive. Now you're putting the work on them to drill down and figure out, do you actually have the right set of solutions? And I just think that that's a mistake. People have too many choices. We have short attention spans. We don't read websites, we scan them. And so if you don't really guide that journey, and you're not going to have control. I mean, the buyer has control. We all need to own up to that and realize that. But you can help guide, and the way you guide is by using a content strategy to kind of map that out through the buyer's journey based on the problems that they have. So you're going to have to do research, use tools like Answer the Public, Go look at your frequently asked questions, interview your past and existing customers. You might even want to do some market research, competitor research. All of these things are going to give you ideas about what are people saying about the problems that they have? What's the language they use? What information are they using, or are they looking for to help them through that buyer's journey? So I think it's just critical. It's just, and then you get to the point where you want to demonstrate from a website perspective to improve your findability, if you will, that you are an expert, that you have content that Google says, hey, if I return this website in a search result, I feel pretty good that it's going to answer and solve the problems that somebody has when they're looking for this search phrase. And so the way you best do that is to create content clusters or hub pages or skyscraper pages or pillar pages. They go by lots of different names, but really, it's all reinforcing content to say, we deeply understand this problem. We get it. We know it. Here's a resource of information that is going to help you figure out how to proceed and how to take the next step to get your transformation in place. Because people, when they have a problem, they're looking for transformation. They want to get out of that problem state and they want to get into a desired state. And marketing is ultimately about transformation. And so, you've got to have the content that helps guide them through that process. The other thing that drives me nuts is, a lot of businesses don't want to put any content on their website because they're afraid that, I'm going to give the answer so one of my competitors can come along and steal it. And it's like, okay, well, you're never going to be found because you don't have any content on your website. And oh, by the way, the number one thing that people want to see when they land on a website is, can you solve my problem? So you have to have enough information to do that. And you need to be prepared to demonstrate and give value before you expect somebody to go, issue a transactional situation. It could be giving an email address. It could be making a purchase. It could be signing up for a trial offer. Content is what drives all of this. And the only place that you can own and control your content and how all this works is on your website. You have to have certain feeder, things. Obviously, putting frequently asked questions on your Google business profile, the questions and answers, is an important thing. But ultimately, you don't have control over that. Google does. The only place you can control it is on your website. And so content, to me, this is the reason why content is fundamental to SEO. It's just absolutely critical and essential. The last thing I'll say too is, when you're thinking about all of this, my God, what better way to create interesting social media content than to focus on the problems that you solve? That's going to generate. And I saw some information earlier today. This came from Dennis Yu, who's a real guru in the Facebook world, in my opinion. A like doesn't mean much on Facebook anymore. A comment is 7 times more valuable than a like, and a share is 13 times more valuable than a like. So, if you post a question and then answer and then provide an answer to a solution, you're creating comment worthy and share worthy content, which is going to help your presence on social media, which is going to drive valuable traffic back to your website that's relevant, that sticks around, that probably clicks through to go to other pieces on your website, and that probably starts to take, eventually, maybe not that first visit, but eventually they're going to start to take those calls to action that are the most meaningful for your business. Sorry, it's kind of all over the place, but there's a lot
That's
here.
Okay. Yeah. And what's interesting about your comment about social media is business owners lose sight that social media is all about social. It's about connecting one-to-one or one-to-many with people. And that's a really good example of how, this isn't about you, it's about them. And if you're able to invest in that platform with your time, energy, and money potentially, you will get far more out of it than if you just set up automated posting, right? There is value to that, but not the same type of value. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know, I mean, HubSpot built an entire industry that maybe they didn't build it all, but they certainly were the ones who kind of defined it and established it and made it consumable and implementable for a lot of other people. You know, this concept of value in advance. And it all has to do with you provide content that helps people solve their problems. And maybe it's a micro solve, you know, maybe it's taking care of an annoyance. We've talked in the past about if you have a video on your website that shows somebody how to program their thermostat, um, you know, they're going to hopefully, if it solves their problem, they're going to feel pretty goodwill about your business. And today, maybe they don't need to call you for a service call that you're probably going to lose money on. But in the future, hopefully they remember your name, and they're like, when their furnace goes completely out, you know, they're more likely to remember you and to give you a call, or your business a call, and have that opportunity. Value in advance, such an important concept. That's the way the internet works. If you're not doing value in advance, you're doing advertising.
yeah, yeah. You're predisposing people to choosing you, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things between what you, excuse me, you yourself and Paul have brought up, you know, another way of also looking at kind of the problems you solve is also to think about there's a common understanding in content development that yes, you should include the features when you're talking about your product or service, but ultimately it's the benefits that you need to focus on more, because that is what the consumer or the business is looking for when they're searching for you. It's what's in it for me. How is this going to help me solve my problem, right? So think about the benefits you're giving to people rather than getting too excited, because, you know, we all get excited about, you know, maybe we're a dentist and we have a CEREC machine that can mill, you know, beautiful teeth in less than an hour. That's cool. The technology is definitely cool, and some people might be really interested in the technology, but the benefit to the patient is they only have one visit. They come in, they get, maybe have their they have to have something done. They come in, they get a crown or an implant same day. It's incredible. So that's kind of the benefit, is that they don't have to come back for multiple visits. So you know, we as businesses need to think about the benefits as well as the features.
Right. That is an important point, though, that I want to talk about a little bit. And that is, you know, you do have a continuum of customers based on and the education of or understanding of the problem that they have. And so you've got some people who are, what you call it, a CEREC machine.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are going to only look for a dentist who has a CEREC machine because they already know about that.
Yeah.
And so you absolutely have to have content on your website that talks about, hey, we've got this, you know, and then you can, you know, also talk about, you know, the benefit to the patient. But at the same time, you've got to have content to, you know, for people who are like, wow, I had no idea that was even a possibility. I'm just looking for somebody to, you know, I feel like I need a crown, who can help me out with that. And then it's like, and then, you know, so you've got to have multiple pieces of content that meet people where they're at in their journey. And also in the sophistication. I don't know that sophistication is the right word, but their depth of understanding of where they're at in the problem. And some people, like, you know, again, a retirement versus a 401k or a 403b or whatever type of a program. If you're a financial planner, you need to have content for both. You're going to have some people who know the solution that they're already looking for, and they want to find the best provider to work with to do that. In other cases, people are just like, I need a retirement plan. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what options I have.
Yeah. Good points. And Paul, let's kind of change direction a little bit, but still focusing on customer problems. But how does focusing on customer problems enhance the user's experience and enhance the user engagement?
Well, because if they don't know that you can solve their problem, they're gone. And there's customer problems and there's customers problems. A lot of times, unfortunately, you go to a lot of small businesses, they're still kind of running their business like it's 1960. And you look at their website, well, they are, and you look at their website, and it's like they're talking to another business owner. They're not addressing the customer problem. And let's say you do kitchen remodeling, so a lot of time you go to these websites and they talk about the benefits of remodeling your kitchen and all this new technology and all these different layouts, and that's great. But there's another customer problem that's not addressed, is what happens during this remodel? Am I without a kitchen for a month? How livable is my house going to be? Is an exterior wall going to have to be, opened up? What happens during this process? And that's an issue that a lot of times is never addressed, and that's a very real concern. So, like I said, there's problems, and you need to look at going back to the whole customer journey and using the kitchen remodel from start to finish. How does this entire process play out? And are they going to be without a kitchen for a month? How does this work? What am I going to be able to use the kitchen at all? If you address those underlying issues, you've kind of created a connection with the customer, and they're probably that's going to build trust and a comfort level. But content is also not, Ken talked about, social media and video. Content is not just blog posts and pages on your website. It's social media. It's YouTube. And like Ken mentioned, that the customer has all these options out there. And by the time they contact you, they've already done a lot of research. And that research takes the form of content. And if you don't have content that addresses their concerns, then they're probably never even going to contact your business in the first place. They're going to be talking to a competitor. I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but
That's okay. I never expect you to answer my questions. No, I'm kidding, Paul. That was great. The one question I would bounce back is people digest content in different ways depending on their personality and how they consume content. But you mentioned it, I think, just in passing, but what is one of the most engaging types of content we currently have, Paul?
It's video.
Yeah. And
we live in a video centric world. I mean, look at TikTok. Not that I trust TikTok, but I mean, YouTube is the second largest search engine, and it's owned by Google. And Ken mentioned earlier, people have short attention spans, and a lot of people would rather watch a video than read a blog post. And there's really something to be said for that, because you can show a lot of things, especially how-to videos, which are the most searched videos on YouTube. You can show things in a video that you just can't put in words.
Yeah. I mean, it's so engaging. It's so consumable. Like if you're listening to us without video, then audio is another rich form of content. But video, if you're watching this live streamed or on YouTube, I mean, it's such an engaging type of content, because you can visually connect with the person that's presenting to you, or the visuals that they're showing you. And obviously, we've mentioned it before, excuse me, but from an SEO standpoint, it's extremely powerful because it keeps people on your page much longer. Google's looking at all of that stuff, including view time and duration on your page. So very valuable.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Every communication channel has its place, and
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where everyone wants to text and email, and you can do a lot with that. But like in the business we're in, sometimes you just have to pick up the phone and talk to people, because verbal communication can accomplish a lot of things that text and email cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to your comment about the buyer's journey and working that into this, right? Even the buyer's journey often has very clear delineation of the depth and time commitment. So the depth of connection and the time commitment involved at different stages of the buyer's journey, meaning, people can find information on outsource marketing or ChangeScape web through search. They can find you on social media, they can find you on YouTube, and they might consume that information to a certain degree in their discovery phase, right? But once they're like, oh, I like these guys, I want to explore how they can help me solve my problems a little bit more. They're going to consume information at a deeper level and look for stuff that you talked about in that buyer's journey. But eventually they'll want to actually talk to someone, whether it's on the phone or on a Zoom call, to really see if there's a connection. Is this the right fit that we're looking for? And that's true in almost any business. And that can make or break, how the customer is going to continue their journey or stop their journey. One of the things that also occurred to me while we were talking that maybe we should address a little bit, and either of you can jump in to answer this, but oftentimes there's multiple audiences, and I'm not specifically talking about different personas of the same type of customer, but like for a remodeling business, we did a website for a remodeling business a little while ago, and one of the interesting nuances is, of course, we're targeting the end user, the homeowner, but we also targeted, kind of had different sections of the website that were focused on another type of persona or another audience, which were professionals that refer to this type of remodeling business. So maybe one of you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, you need to think about who, and I think this kind of is a lead in to the alignment question that I think we're going to ask me here in a minute.
You want me to ask you now?
Sure.
Okay. So the next question, and I was probably foreshadowing it a little. What are the benefits of aligning your content to the specific problems your small business solves? And maybe, another addition to that is the specific, audiences you're trying to connect with as well.
Yeah, and one of the key audiences that it's usually one of the most cost-effective ways is to build strategic partnerships. And in order to do that, you probably need to think about having content that speaks to potential strategic partners that can help you, in effect, create a distribution channel in a formalized way, and in a less formalized way, although maybe not, a referral partnership. And so you need to have content that, that helps them understand why would they want to even reach out and try to build that relationship with you. So, I think I mentioned before, the example of, an exterior modeler, or a financial advisor. Let's say that you don't want to work with people who don't have a clue what direction they want to take with retirement plans. All you want to do is just crank out 401k rollovers, and things that you just have a machine to do. Then you may not want that content on your website because that is misaligned with the ideal customer that you're trying to attract. And so you're going to get a lot of noise, and it's going to create a lot of distractions. Likewise, a siding contractor, if you don't want to mess with vinyl siding and you're only going to do James Hardie siding or vinyl or fiber cement siding, that or window replacement is another good one. If you don't want to deal with just single window replacements, which is going to be the majority of the traffic that you're going to get, when you try to put content around your website around that, and you only want to do whole home window replacements as a part of a bigger project, that has content implications. And so you just really need to think this through. I mean, you really have to try to foreshadow and also understand, I think through research is usually the best, and doing a marketing strategy where you're really thinking things through. And maybe, and I think there's a lot of value and benefit of hiring, an external party outside of your business to provide an outside view looking in, so that, because we all have biases, we all get trapped, with, one of the most important things that I learned, and I still struggle with all the time, but I buy based on, I sell based on how I buy. And so that completely dictates my bias about the content that I create, and what my expectations are of customers. And I probably lose opportunities because that's my narrow focus, and that's my bias. So you've got to have alignment. I mean, it's just critical. It's hard to do. The best way to do it is make sure that you have a marketing strategy in place. Force yourself out of the day-to-day operations. You've got to step up. You've got to step outside your business. You've got to look at it, from a big picture view. You got to look at, how can all of these things reinforce and provide force amplification, in conjunction with one another, as opposed to one-off individual tactics here or there. You might get lucky. You might create a piece of content that might generate some business, but if it's a one-off tactic, because you're like, oh, you know what? I haven't written a blog post in 6 months. Maybe I'll write a blog post. Okay, maybe that blog post gets you a phone call. Somebody books an appointment. Don't be deceived to think that it's the magic bullet, because it's just, it's a one-off thing that you might get some results from it, but you got to focus on the amplification, the consistency, and the search engines want to see that too. They want to see that you're constantly trying to demonstrate that you're the best, most trustworthy, most relevant solution to solve somebody's problem.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I don't think we talk about this anywhere, in the questions that I've posed to you guys. But call to actions is a really important part of solving somebody's problem, right? Like, if we don't have calls to action on the website, forms to fill out, click to calls, download a guide, whatever it might be,
phone number
then
at the top of your website. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point too, Ian. I think when we talk about alignment, you've got to be realistic. You can't expect somebody the first time they visit your website, especially if you have a fairly complex solution to a problem, or an expensive, if it's an existential situation, I need something, to eat for lunch. That's one end of the spectrum. If you're making an investment in remodeling a kitchen for $30,000-$60,000 or more, then you're going to have a different buying cycle. There's going to be a lot more involved. And so you just have to think through all of these different things.
Yeah. So Paul, we've talked about these problems that we should be incorporating into our content. What are some steps that a small business can take if they're uncertain about how customers describe their problems? How can they uncover basically the voice of the customer?
Talk to your current customers. That'd be a good place to start. Do surveys. Surveys are great. And for some reason, people like to take surveys. I don't, but a lot of people do, and they work. But you can do things like keyword research. If you have a competitor that's kicking your butt, go see what they're doing. Go look at their website. Go look at what they're doing. But usually the best thing to do is just talk to your current customers and say, hey, why did you choose us? What were you looking for when you found us, our website, our Google business profile, whatever it is? Because that's going to help you, like I say, get outside yourself and look at your business through the eyes of a customer or potential customer. And that's really the best way to do it. Go look at reviews that people are leaving. There's a lot of information there, whether it's a good review or a bad review. Sometimes you can learn more from bad reviews than good reviews. And look at what people are saying, because they'll say maybe it is customer service. Everyone says that they offer great customer service, whether they do or not. But if people are leaving reviews saying, hey, this company was awesome to work with, they had the best customer service of any contractor I ever used, now that's social proof. Pull that into your website. And talk, maybe pick up the phone. You probably know who they are. They're your customer. So pick up the phone and call them and talk to them and say, can you expand on this? What other things did we do, good or bad? Is there ways we can improve?
Yeah, I think using keyword research tools is important. Using a tool like Answer the Public or something similar, where these websites build and collect questions that people are asking. If you're going to run Google ads, mine your Google ads and see what people are searching for to trigger your ad. It may not be that you want to continue to invest in that from an advertising perspective, but it might tell you a piece of content that you need to write about and put onto your website because it's important enough for somebody to be looking for that. There are lots of different things that you can do, but again, it all has to be research driven.
Yeah. You first need to start with a hunger to understand the truth about your customers' pain points. One of the things you mentioned, Paul, was reviews, and usually we think about our own reviews, but a great technique you can use in addition to that is actually looking at, you talked about, your competitors that are killing it. Look at their reviews, their positive reviews, obviously, but then also look at their negative reviews, but then find the competitors that aren't killing it and are actually, they have the worst, review rating in your area, because you can actually learn a lot about what ticks customers off from their bad reviews. And then you can position yourself to fill that gap, because you're probably doing it somewhat naturally now, but from a communication standpoint, for arborists or tree cutting services, one of the biggest complaints is they don't clean up after themselves, and a lot of trades are like that. And so, electricians leave all the cuttings. Some of them leave all their wire cuttings on the floor. And as a homeowner, it's amazing how powerful that is, that they're looking for people that clean up after themselves, because they just want the problem solved, but they don't want extra work for themselves. Right. So that's just an example where you can harvest what's in other people's reviews to your benefit.
Yeah. Great point. And speaking of reviews, I mean, they're such an important thing. Most people fail to market the reviews. But the other thing that to keep in mind is, your customer is they've got a problem and they're looking for a guide, which would be your business, to help them solve that problem. But they're looking not only for somebody who can help them solve the problem, they need to feel like you have the empathy, but also the authority to be the right choice for them. And, so you want to make sure that you have content on your website that demonstrates both the empathy and the authority. And so, that could be expressed through, online reviews that you can pull onto your website, or testimonials. It could be through certification badges. If there are certain industries have basic minimum requirements, to be licensed to be able to do certain things. Even having a statement on your website that you're licensed and insured, so that you take that liability off of a potential customer, is a big deal for people. And it can be an automatic elimination. I used to work in a world where I used to write a lot of proposals, and the best way that a proposal reviewer shortens the pile of people that they are going to deeply consider, first thing they do is look for the disqualifications. I asked these 10 questions. They didn't answer this one. pitch, you're going into the pile. And you don't want to do that. You need to be able to answer fully what people are thinking about. And again, you have to think through this. You may be disqualifying yourself unknowingly just because you didn't stop to think about, what is important to people, asking them, researching, what people are expressing online, through reviews or other searches, or what they're saying about competitors, whatever it is.
I love how you worked into that the idea of the proposal. Another very similar idea is the interview, right? When you're looking to hire someone, if people don't answer all your questions in the interview process or in the resume or cover letter, boop, they're booted, right? So just
Right.
like that, thinking that, this is self-serve. These are people that are looking for your service. They want certain questions answered. And if you're not answering them, you're leaving doubt in their mind. And if they have doubt in their mind, the chances are they'll continue their search.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ken, I thought it would be really good to get like super practical. So maybe you can describe some key steps a business can use in order to create problem-solving content. Obviously, there's a professional content developer or writer will do this, they'll have this down pat because that's all they do every day, but maybe give some people an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, we've already talked about, looking at problems in the 3 dimensions, the internal, the external, and the philosophical. I think you want to visualize, how is somebody describing their current state, their before state, and, what is their desired after state. And again, based on the product or service that you offer, I've mentioned this before, but the elements of value pyramid is really a great little tool. It's it's not based off, it's similar to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where if you offer a product that is very existential, getting shelter over somebody's head or getting food in their stomachs, that's one thing. But if you're trying to offer a product or solution that's aspirational, that's a different thing. And so you need to have a deep understanding of what is driving people, and to take steps to make that purchase with your business. What's going to get them interested, what's going to start to solidify the commitment. You talked about calls to action. Not everybody is going to be ready to make that purchase decision right away, but maybe they're ready to sample something. So if you sell, high-end ramen noodles is basically what I'm going to call them, which is something that I've been experiencing here. You send have an offer for somebody to get a sample pack to try out your products, and get them to make a micro purchase. Get them to give you an email address so that you can maybe send them some recipes, but without asking them to make a commitment to make a big full-blown purchase. You need to think about what pieces of content and what value in advance can I offer to be able to do that. And as you're creating your content, always give people the fast button or the easy button. If they're ready to make that buying decision, boom, make it easy for them. But if they're not, make it easy for them to take that next little micro step and say, not ready to call and talk to somebody yet, but I am ready to read more about the product specifications that you might have to offer, or, the feature set and the benefits of your solution, because I'm in research mode. So it's really important, I think, for people to, to kind of go through that process. It ultimately, the more you can understand the pain that somebody's experiencing or the uncomfort level that they're experiencing, the more effective you can create content to address that. I think we've covered a lot of other things that kind of pertain to that as well.
Sure. Okay. And Paul, what approaches can businesses take to ensure that their problem-solving content is valuable and actionable?
Yeah,
we've
this
covered some of this, but I think there's some additional things here that we can dig into.
yeah, this kind of leads towards the how-to stuff.
Yeah.
And something Ken had mentioned earlier is that a lot of businesses they don't want to put this content on their website. It's like I don't want to tell people how to do something. I want them to call me. Well, that information's out there. Okay, this, like I said earlier, this is not 1960. Okay, this information is out there, and it's probably on a competitor's website. And if you don't put it on your website, they're going to find it somewhere else. So this goes back to adding value first. But so can use the example of programming a thermostat. An HVAC company they're going to lose money if they go out to program a thermostat. They're going to lose money on that service call. You can't charge enough to make money on that. So show them how to do it. Have examples for the more popular types of thermostats. Do a video. Show them how this is how you program your thermostat, or this is how you do something step by step. How do you patch a concrete wall? And there's another advantage in that a lot of times people will think that something is simpler than it is. And if you break this down saying, here's the steps to doing this, you have to do this, they may say, this is more complicated than I thought, and I don't want to screw this up. So I'm just going to call these people and have them do it. Well, if you refuse to put that content on your website and your competitor does, guess who they're not going to call? They're not going to call you. So just, it's, you can, and this goes back to calls to action. Have clear calls to action. When you have these step-by-step procedures, this is how you do this is how you do that. And by the way, if you think this is more than you want to take on, here's our phone number. Here's a form you can fill out. Make sure that is there. And that how-to content can actually increase conversions, because like I said, a lot of times if it's something super simple, yeah, maybe they'll do it, but that's going to keep you top of mind for something else down the road that isn't so simple. And if they look at this process and say, yeah, this is more than I want to take on, I'm just going to call them and have them deal with it so I don't have to mess with it.
Yeah, like a good example is plumbing. Like I always think plumbing is a good one because it's disastrous if it goes wrong, right? You get wet and spoil things and ruin your house and mold. And so, I think plumbers have an opportunity to show people how to, unclog simple things, how to fix a leaky pipe, all with the purpose of helping, but also knowing that you're predisposing that person, that when they start that project and they get in over their head, because man, that happened. Like I'm pretty handy, but that happens sometimes, right? Your level of expertise is outweighed by your level of courage in that project. And so, I think that's an opportunity for, in a plumbing circumstance, for people to give some of the step-by-steps away, but also offering, like, should you get into trouble, here's a button, call us today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, plumbing's a good example because it's a lot easier to take something apart than to put it back together and have it not leak.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing too, we haven't really talked about, and that those are pop-ups, which are annoying, and they can be really annoying if they're not done well and thought out. But, the reality is, and again, this is across all websites. So, you have to put this into context of how it may work for your business. But the reality is only about 4% of people convert the first time they come to your website, meaning they take a call to action to fill out a form, schedule an appointment, maybe even download something. A pop-up is, while it's annoying, if it's done right and it's done well, it can get you an additional 2% conversion. Like if you have a pop-up come and display upon exit of somebody leaving your website, it's like, oh wait, before you go, would you like to download our guide to, how to prevent leaky pipes in your home? If we're going to stay with a plumber, and you're gonna get some increased conversions from that. And so again, I think, but it has to be relevant content. It has to be aligned with who's visiting your website. It probably needs to be aligned based on, the pieces of content that they're looking on your website, the particular web page or the particular blog post. Those are going to be the ones that are going to perform the best, and that gets back to the whole alignment thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some other really good examples of, content that people want at different stages are case studies, right? Like case studies are super valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it depends on who your ideal,
Yeah.
Customer or target customer is. If you're in a highly professional or even a technical business or medical, they're probably going to want to see some kind of a case study or, or something to that effect. Other people are going to look for 7, a quick little ebook or checklist, 7 things to do before I do this, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and by case studies, just to elaborate a little, I'm not talking about, in the corporate world where I did much of my teeth cutting and marketing was case studies for B2B, right? So they're very specific. You have a problem or a challenge, you have, the circumstance, you have the solution, and you have the result or the transformation, right? And I think that is absolutely relevant. You might not call them case studies, you might call them success stories or something, but we use these all the time in remodeling websites because you want to see before and afters. That's essentially a case study where you walk people through. This is what they wanted. This is, the challenge. This is what we did. And this was the result and the feeling they got. And the same is true with dentists, when when you have to get teeth removed and replaced or braces, right? Those are all, in my view, those would be case studies or success stories that can be really valuable.
Yeah.
Guys, I know our time is running down, so I'm actually going to skip a couple of questions and just, throw it all into the pot and say, Ken, Paul, any last thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about social media. While it is annoying, it does give you some really great resources. There are community groups, there are professional groups that you can go in, forums, online forums, even, they still exist. Sites like Reddit or places like that where you can go learn an awful lot about what, even Nextdoor, pay attention to what people are looking for and asking about in your local neighborhoods. If you're a local, service based or product based business, even for that matter, doesn't mean that your ideal customers may necessarily be on Nextdoor, but it may give you an indication of what people are looking for, so that maybe you kind of intentionally define yourself to be different than what that audience is looking for, or it may be exactly on target with what you're doing. You can use social media, to ask questions, and get feedback, do polls or questionnaires. You can do research, using hashtags. You can also go in and do searches to find businesses, on social media platforms. It's not nearly as common to do that as it is to go do a Google search. But again, it may give you an idea if you go look at your competitors and see what are they saying about themselves. What are they communicating? Are they telling stories? Are they doing, founder stories about, key people in their business on their social media profiles? Are they, highlighting like you talked about, Ian, the transformations from the before to the after states? If they're doing it and you're not, and you're trying to go after, very similar or the exact same customers, that's a huge indication that you probably have a content gap that you need to address.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points. Paul, anything else you want to add?
The only thing I'd say, and Ken kind of touched on this earlier about the one-off blog post, is you have to be consistent when it comes to content. You can't just toss a blog post out there every couple of months and expect that to help you. So no matter what type of content, it's consistency is is really important, and that's that's something we run into. I think all of us with clients that, well, I'm going to do my own blog post. No, you're not. It's not going to happen.
Well, and if it does happen, what are you missing in terms of, adding the SEO essentials to help it be more findable, and also, is it easy to skim and consume instead of forcing people to read each and every word, which they're not likely to do anymore.
Yeah, they're not. People are going to look. People are busy. They're going to skim, and that's why the structure of the post or page is important, because they're going to skim through there and see if they can find what they need. And that's another reason video content is so powerful, because you can consume a lot of information in a shorter amount of time with a video than you can with a blog post. It's just the way it is.
One last point, the great thing about creating all this content is, if you do it right and you think about this and you integrate it into strategic thinking, is it's all repurposable.
Yeah.
You can break it up into smaller chunks. You can take video and use a transcript, to put on your website for those people who might be interested in reading more information than watching a video. You can chunk it out for social media posts. I mean, so the great thing is, all of this stuff that you're doing, it has so much life to it, and so many uses to it that people just don't take advantage of.
Great points, guys. Well, I think we need to wrap up. Thank you, Ken and Paul, for sharing your thoughts on this important topic. And thank you to our listeners who serve consumers, businesses by solving their problems. I hope you found this topic really valuable. Please share it with other businesses that can put it to use. And until next week, keep calm and mark it on, folks. Bye for now.